Hello, my friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. So, we're going to start with Tropical Storm Gordon lashing South Florida as it heads towards the Gulf Coast. And so, Tropical Storm Gordon formed in the Florida Keys on Monday morning, and it's forecast to strengthen over the next 48 hours as it brings strong winds and heavy rain to the Gulf of Mexico, the National Hurricane Center said. Gordon is already lashing southern Florida with rain and tropical storm force winds. A hurricane watch is in place for Mississippi and Alabama coasts, including the cities of Gulfport, Biloxi, and Mobile. The storm will gather strength as it heads through the Gulf of Mexico and can be at or near hurricane force as it makes landfall Tuesday night along the Mississippi or Alabama coast, the Hurricane Center said. Gordon is headed west-northwest at 16 miles an hour into the Gulf of Mexico and has maximum winds of 45 miles per hour. And we've seen this year it's not necessarily the winds, it's the rain, it's the water. That's what's been doing all the damage. And this storm is forecast to pass over the Keys on Monday, emerge over southeastern Gulf of Mexico by Monday evening, and reach the central Gulf Coast by late Tuesday. Let's hope that it could stir things up in the Gulf and maybe start clearing out the red tide. That would be a wonderful thing. And I've actually had many people make that comment and saying, well, what you need is you need some hurricanes to come down there and stir things up and clear it out. So we will keep an eye out as this is going to be, one of the first storms to actually go and hit that area this year. And does this mean that there's going to be more coming? Well, September is always the busiest month. It's always the busiest month, and it almost has twice as many storms as the next 2 months. So it's definitely a time to be prepared. And let's think about the positive here. Maybe it really will help the red tide situation, and let's hope, because it's getting to be intolerable. Many of you might be familiar with Paul Begley, and we had a clip sent in of Paul Begley talking about the red tide, and he was talking about just how bad it is, and I've been talking about it as well. Of course, you guys know how it's impacted me. I'm thankful that I'm breathing much better now, and my sinuses are not burning, which is wonderful because you kind of get used to them burning all the time down there. And he was talking about how it's really threatening the lives of people down there. There's so many elderly down there with compromised immune systems, and people that are not even elderly that are feeling the effects. I could tell you of so many people I know that have gone off to the emergency rooms because of the red tide. So let's hope that maybe this will clear things out a little. And as we go and check what else is going on, and I am doing this from a hotel room basically, and on my laptop, so my laptop might be a little bit slower. We have flash flooding striking northern Italy, cars, buildings, and vineyards washed away. Sudden and violent thunderstorms unleashed hell upon northern Italy over the weekend, submerging streets and washing away cars in the province of Verona. According to local reports, hospital phone lines were temporarily down. State of emergency was issued. And when do you remember state of emergencies just from storms? Not hurricanes, not major earthquakes and things, just storms. Reports are coming in of regions receiving 6.5 inches of rain in just a matter of hours. Footage from social media shows some of the devastation, and there's videos for you guys to click on. I'll have the links for you guys as always. As you can see, the first floor area there it looks like you're up to probably waist deep water. Just amazing. Are we getting desensitized to it because we've seen so much of this now? Where in any other year we would look at this and say, holy crap. Now it's just like, yeah, it's another one. It's incredible. But this is the world we live in now. Northern Italy remains under a double weather warning for thunderstorms and rain, with residents urged to be prepared for formidable weather. Even a powerful waterspout was spotted in the Tyrrhenian Sea on Sunday, heading towards the tranquil holiday island of Ventotene. Fortunately, the tornado veered away from the island and lost power closer to Ischia. And there you see a picture of the tornado. Thank you, Grand Solar Minimum, for this amazing weather that we're having. Or, thank you, CERN and HARP. Thank you, New World Order, perhaps. Torrential rains force major evacuations in Guangdong Province, China. And China is getting particularly hard hit. And last night's video, we're talking about safe spots, and we saw that some of those maps show, I mean, China's going to lose, according to some of those maps, of what the world's going to look like after the Earth changes. Half of its land area, or 2/3. And with so many people, it's like, where are they going to go if that is actually, remotely accurate? And many people were making comments too about, like, how could the land, say in Utah and some parts of Colorado, that's 6,000-7,000 feet high, how could it possibly be underwater? Think of subduction, and think of, as Casey said, there's going to be whole areas where the plates drop and just basically drop in height. And there's other areas that are going to be rising, according to this. And we do see, if you guys ever watch Secure Team, he did an interesting video about a week ago in a part of the ocean that's literally, I think it's around 7,000 or 7,500 feet deep. They found what looks to be gigantic footprints on the ocean floor. And I'm gonna have to dig that up, or try to find it again. I need to do some research on that. With as much moving around as I've done lately, there's some things I haven't caught up on. But that was fascinating. That was fascinating. So it's hard to imagine, but yes, there are whole areas that can drop, literally drop, whole parts of plates that can just literally, sink. And so, was this above water, or was this always below water? If it's something below water, what type of, creature could take the pressure of being, 7,500 feet below the sea and actually walking on the surface? And as we know, or maybe some don't, you find evidence of the sea in many high places. So it's either a case of, rising or massive tidal waves that basically could reach very, very high places, 6,000-7,000 feet high as well. There are shells, in some areas that are now deserts and 7,000 feet above ground, above sea level. So things can change, and things can change in massive ways. Massive. So over here we have more than 1.2 million people that have been affected to date, 127,000 forced to evacuate. And these rains are unusually heavy, as we have seen. At least 111,000 acres of farmland has been destroyed. Just add that to the growing list. It's becoming obvious that we are going to be facing a major famine in not too far distant future. And there's a video there, as you see the cars submerged. Average of 5 to 10 inches of rain fallen on the region in the past couple days. We estimate 15 inches on the eastern part of Guangdong Province. Hong Kong received about 8 inches of rain. Fortunately, Super Typhoon Jebi is forecast to steer well east of Guangdong. However, current models put the storm on a direct course with Japan, a country that's already seen more than its share of weather extremes this year. and that's for sure. And that would be the 13th, I believe, it's going to hit Japan this year. As we progress deeper into the grand solar minimum, the jet stream is taking on more of a meridional flow, replacing the standard zonal. Where a zonal setup moves air from west to east, this other flow transports cold air south and warm air north. And this flow can effectively lock weather systems in place. And this explains why regions have become unseasonably hot or cold and others unusually dry or rainy, with extremes lasting for longer extended periods of time. Climate scientists have estimated that flooding and drought regimens will become far more frequent as we basically get into just a period of much more extremes. Influx of cosmic rays, more cloud nucleation, more rain. It just is the way that it goes. And over here, the Shangpo Xiang River at its highest level in 50 years, and all sorts of records are breaking. And this is on the back of the Kerala devastation in India. Further flood alerts have been issued to the districts in Arunachal Pradesh, India. Oh, and it makes me feel like I want some Indian food. I think it's been a week since I had Indian food. Oh my God, I can't go longer than a week without Indian food. Sorry guys, just love it. The Chinese government issued an alert to India stating that the Shangpo River, the Chinese portion of the Brahmaputra, has never witnessed such a heavy rainfall in the last 50 years. And just looking at that photo, of basically the electrical wires on fire. One of our good friends was saying last night, or I think it was last night, or it could have been the night before now, so many close calls with the lightning, just hitting the ground so close to, populated areas. And it's definitely, it's getting pretty scary out there. And as we've talked about before, there's a reason why the ancients didn't build metal houses, even if they had the technology to build them, because of things like this. Stone and earth is so much better and so much more grounding. China was forced to release water into Siang, the Indian portion of the Brahmaputra, and the water level has been swelling ever since. Because of heavy rains, the water level has increased to this level for the first time since 50 years. The government has sent us a letter and we're acting on it. We have been calling on the administration and various officers regarding the water level in the area. We have alerted places and even shifted and rescued few residents in the area. There's no need to panic right now. And here you can see them releasing water. India is experiencing its worst monsoon in terms of rainfall volume in the last 64 years. And again, it's part of the bigger picture. And so things are changing rapidly. And if we look at Greenland now, Greenland has gained 510 billion tons of ice over the last year. Summer is over and the Greenland surface has gained 510 billion tons of ice over the past year, about 40% above normal. So that flies in the face of what we hear out of the, global warming, carbon emissions people, the mainstream on that. This is a rapid turnaround, but if we do look at it, we could see in the records that there's always a period of global warming followed by basically an ice age. It's just the way it always happens. Every ice age is preceded by global warming. So it's almost like the Earth is having a fever, and then the ice age cools, and gets rid of the fever. And so the Greenland ice sheet is building rapidly, and the surface mass balance from September 2017 to August 2018 has been the highest in 20 years, thanks to exceptional snowfall last winter and the lowest melt rate for 17 years in the summer of 2018. As this says, the modern maximum is over. Welcome to the grand solar minimum. And we can see we are in a very, very changing climate. And we're going to be talking about the record cold and the record snow. And that is what the story is going to shift to. But that doesn't mean that we can't have periods of tremendous warmth and all sorts of insane records going with record heat as well during the summer, and then just dropping off a cliff into massive cool off and record snowfall, as you can see here in this chart. And you can see on the right 1981 to 2010, and then on the left 2018. So things are changing. The usual fraudsters continue their hysterical lies. Greenland is melting away, the world is on fire, we're all choking on too much plant food, and my new favorite, climate change will make the insects hungrier. But we know the truth. Prepare, grand solar minimum. And again, there's many out there, myself included, are suspicious about things swinging back the other way. As far as, okay, now are we going to swing back this way? And many, many, many of you guys believe that this is completely being manufactured through weather modification. Many, 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 many. Weather wars, weather modification. By reading the comments, I think better than 50% of you guys do. Does that mean we're getting very cynical, or does that mean we're actually waking up? So August's UAH satellite-based temperature data is in, and the global average temperature dropped 0.13 degrees Celsius in August. So I guess the world isn't on fire anymore. And so this global area averaged lower tropospheric temperature anomalies. It's a departure from a 30-year calendar. Monthly means 1981 to 2010. The 13-month centered average is meant to give an indication of the lower frequency variations in the date. Choice of 13 months is somewhat arbitrary. An odd number of months allows centered plotting on months with no time lag between the two plotted time series. The inclusion of two of the same calendar months on the ends of the 13-month averaging period causes no issues with interpretation, because the seasonal temperature cycle has been removed, and so has the distinction between calendar months. So very, very interesting stuff. And as we've been seeing, just incredible signs in the skies. The clouds have been just amazing anywhere you go. Honestly, here in the mountains and the Appalachians, they look more normal to me than what I've been seeing down in Florida, for sure. More like the clouds that I remember back in normal days. So we are seeing some amazing signs in the sky. You guys are sending in some really interesting photos. And here we're looking at a rainbow-capped cloud over the city of Merinda in the Yucatan, Mexico. Just amazing, amazing cloud formations. And the ones that honestly get my stomach nervous are those shelf clouds for some reason. I don't know why, but they just feel ominous. They feel ominous. They feel heavy, and going from down there in Florida to up here, it feels lighter up here. It really, really does. It feels much lighter. And there's probably a variety of factors with that as well, but the skies look clearer, and I'm thankful for that. So 5 main cultural influences controlling your subconscious mind. And our subconscious minds are always being bombarded every day, always. Programming, selective programming, purposeful programming. Programming that is conditioning us to think in certain ways, to respond in certain ways, to expect certain outcomes. These are some of the ways that we are being controlled and manipulated by society And you know what's really creepy? What what's really creepy is I don't know how many times in the last couple days, because I've been doing a lot of searches, I will be talking about something, or my friend will be talking about something, and then we're like, well, let's see what we find in a search. And we go and just start typing in the first couple letters, and just if it was global warming, just do GLO, and boom, global warming, right? And it doesn't even have to be that. It could be like, where's a good Thai restaurant? And just start to put in TH, and it comes up Thai restaurant. And it's weird. It's really weird. And so I totally believe our phones are listening to us 24/7, 365 now. It's just bizarre. It's like AI is listening, predictive programming. I mean, there's things in there, there's no way they should know it. Like if you wanted to go, if you mentioned something like, "Oh, hey, look, there's a vineyard nearby. I wonder how what hours they're open," and you just go to type in VIN, and it's going to come right to the exact vineyard that you were talking about. Have you guys been experiencing that? Because we have, and it's kind of getting mind blowing, because it must be. I mean, it's stuff we're talking about, and we haven't done a search on it yet, and it's coming straight up to that. The only way I could think is if the phones are actually listening to us all the time. So, very creepy. Speaking of creepy, um, getting back to this now, the ways that we're being basically manipulated and programmed subliminally, and of course, subliminal advertising. Now, I mean, I see it all the time. And if I'm doing some research on water filters, obviously, then there's going to be nothing but water filters coming up. Water distillers, nothing but that coming up. If you're looking for a rental home, then there's nothing but that coming up. But the thing is, how are they knowing this before you even do a search, right? That's the weird part. So it's just getting to be crazy. But some of the ways, 5 main cultural influences controlling your subconscious mind. Number one, beauty programming. In 2017, Forbes magazine estimated that the beauty industry is worth nearly $500 billion a year in the US alone. The industry is so lucrative because of how body image is used to manipulate people and their sexual identities, especially women. An ideal, largely unattainable representation of beauty is projected throughout our culture, causing a major disruption to self-identity. Our over-sexualization of even the youngest members of society is everywhere. Number two, violence programming, and that's going on. And I remember being younger myself and playing the video games and stuff. Of course, our video games were like Space Invaders and Donkey Kong and Mario Brothers, things like that. Not like what we have now. I remember the first James Bond ones that came out. Um, but now, I mean, they're so realistic. They're programming you in many cases to be such an efficient killer. And think about how the military can train people by using these games, and we've seen it with the kids that are turned on all of a sudden, and they become these mass murderers. Violence programming. This one is everywhere, from the nightly news to the vast majorities of television shows and movies, even throughout the music industry. Violence is presented as the solution to any problem, darkly coloring the subconscious mind with images of death, torture, fighting, destruction, war, and violence against nature. Have you ever noticed how television and print media will scream themselves hoarse in news documentaries and heavily analytical pieces about rising pornography, crime, violence, gunplay, etc., and at the same TV guide announcing the latest special on the crisis of sex and violence will appear an advertisement for Miami Vice. Oh my God, are we going back to Miami Vice? Come on. But or how about just simply then advertising Call of Duty? advertising all these other violent games that really get you programmed into an automatic reflex response of violence. And that is so dangerous. And we just have to recognize that. We really have to recognize that. And, I'm not a Tipper Gore. And, those of you that were around in the 80s and 90s, you're remembering how it was such a big thing where, she wanted to come down on so many different things, industry-wise, the violence, the games, all that. But at the same time, really, what are we doing when we're playing all these games that are, war games and things like that? It really is cultivating a a society of violent programming and violent response. And so we really have to be careful about that and recognize what's going on there. Occult symbolism, they do it everywhere. And so, I am extremely suspicious of everything, with the occult symbols. Because I think also what they're doing here is they're programming you to see it and then to fear it and to irrationally fear it. And I think that they're doing it so that they could keep some people away from it and then entice others into it. And also, they're always selling stuff. So ask yourself, why are they selling you this? And this goes on. Classic occult symbolism is ubiquitous in our culture now. Appearing throughout the entertainment media, spiritual symbols of the occult present a constant reminder that dark forces are at play in our world. They trigger a deep subconscious fear of death, which is thought to be the main driver of all human behavior, as well as submissiveness to basic level forces such as fear, greed, and lust. The themes are applied in so many productions that it utterly defies coincidence, which means there must be some greater unifying message or purpose behind it all, based on the type of symbols when looked at in the historical context of esoteric religious movement, Egyptian theology, Babylonian mythology, Satan worship, and so on. Hollywood and the movie industry is clearly working to serve a particular ideological movement. The worship of dark and satanic forces has historically been linked to human sacrifice, pedophilia, sexual perversion, ego worship, celebrity worship, fragmentation of the individual psyche into controllable parts, mind control and corruption of the soul. The use of occult and its symbols is a methodology employed to weaken the power of the individual and create psychological slaves, a serious form of mind control. The hypocrisy of church and state. Stoking extreme cognitive dissonance, the most influential institutions in our world, church and state, are perpetually engaged in behavior that defies their stated objectives, creating an environment where otherwise would-be virtuous people develop a warped sense of reality. The Catholic Church is mired in evil, child abuse scandals all the time, but they still put on the air of righteousness. The government is pretty much always engaging in scandal, murder, corruption, and every other evil, vile thing, while again pretending itself as an organization that brings justice and equality to our world. It really is a joke. It's such a travesty, and it's so obvious. We see it all the time. The corrupt politicians. It's just everywhere you look. They're all bought and paid for. As soon as they get to positions of power, they're approached and brought into the web and into the net, and the vast majority of them sell their souls in order to have those wonderful lifestyles that they so want, and that recognition that their egos want. And so they sell their souls and sell out their constituents. And it happens time and time again. And the ones that don't, they either get ruined by whatever dirt they have stored against them, or they get taken out as Kennedy did and as Lincoln did. Victim consciousness. If you believe you are a victim, then you also believe that you have no control over your choices and fate. Church and state love for people to play the role of victim because they know it leaves a power vacuum in people's lives, causing them to look outwardly for direction while giving up their power. That's a big one. Make sure you're not giving up your power. Any thought, any mindset that takes away your power, your right to self-autonomy, puts your free will in the power in the hands of others, that's not going to be of the higher purposes. That's not going to be something out of love. That's going to be basically out of control. So be very aware of others asking you to give them your power. And you can see it so clearly from the Catholic Church. You know, you must pay for indulgences. A rich man could get a divorce back in the old days and pay an indulgence, you know, pay a fee and be forgiven, and he could go ahead and divorce his wife. Not a poor man, or a poor woman for that effect. And so when we look back farther and farther, we see this control. It's gone on forever through religion, through politics. And it's all done to basically keep people under control, keep them subservient, keep them giving away their power. If you look at a lot of the channeled messages that come through, and we are basically conditioned to not accept any channeled messages other than the official channeled messages that we are told by the priests, you know, by the spiritual hierarchy. You know, you can accept this because this is the authentic, you know, goods. This is our party line, so only accept this. Don't accept any other info that comes through that is quote unquote channeled. But when you see some of the messages coming through that's channeled, it's warning you, don't give your authority away. Because when you give your authority away, then you invite in these energies to come and take over. It's a free will universe. It's a free will universe. So they have to get you to give away your power. And that's the trick. And they do it through conditioning. They do it through fear. You know, not love, but fear-based conditioning. So are you living in fear? Is that why you believe what you believe? Is it about fear or is it about love? Are your beliefs based in fear or are your beliefs based in love? If they're based in love, then that is wonderful, because that is definitely the pathway to God and to Source. If they're based in fear, then somebody is stepping in the way and sapping and taking your power, your authority, your energy, and is becoming a middleman. And that is what the church has done. For instance, the Catholic Church stuck themselves straight in between God and humans. And so they did it in order to keep themselves in power, and they have grown rich from it. And when we see that, you know, the Catholic Church, for instance, has so many investments with all the Rothschilds banks. And not just that I'm picking on just the Catholic Church, because there's so many other out there as well. And I think I've shared with some of you as well, you know, one pastor in my hometown, he literally had 30 BMWs and was always asking for more money. Is that living a life of Christ? Hell no. I mean, be serious here, you know? Can you imagine if Christ was here right now, would he be driving a BMW? Can you see Jesus driving a BMW or a Mercedes or a Porsche or a Ferrari down the street? What do you think he'd be doing? We need to ask ourselves this. You know, so much of the time we basically do things to alleviate guilt that we feel. And boy, if you were brought up Catholic, and I only speak on this because, you know, I was brought up Catholic, but thankfully my parents were not as quote unquote Catholic as their parents were, because my parents were brought up with a ton of guilt. My father went all through Catholic schools his entire life and was whacked on the knuckles, whacked on the head his entire life. And so when you met him, he was very, very quiet. He didn't speak unless spoken to, honestly, even as an adult. The conditioning was so deep, but yet he had this overriding sense of compassion and love in him, which I adored and admired. But the conditioning was still there about, you know, that conditioning that you just don't question things. And I just am the opposite. I question everything. I've always questioned everything. And that's just part of who I am. And that actually is not conditioning. That comes through. I do think that's just part of my soul, my essence. And part of my purpose here is to basically question everything, especially anything that's an established norm. And pointing out the hypocrisy of the church and the state is definitely one thing that's so obvious and we need to do. The system is so corrupt, it needs a complete redo over. It's probably at this point, it's not going to be able to be fixed. And so, as I've said before, I always get taken back to these different songs, and that Tool song Enema, where he's saying, Mom, please come and flush it all away, because she is. We're seeing the waters, the rains. We're seeing these floods and all, and the old system is going to be washed all away. And so we must basically work to just forge straight ahead, recognize that we're not going to be victims. We're not going to give our power away, to the church, to the state, to anyone. We're going to unify and become stronger together, and we're going to be faced with a society that we're going to have to go back to some of the older ways of actually, unifying and working together through this, picking each other up. And we're going to be more of a tribal society in so many ways. Banding together, supporting each other, that's what we're going to have to do to get through this. It's not going to be Big Brother that saves you. Big Brother is going to do nothing but basically herd you into refugee camps, FEMA camps, things along those lines. And there's so many questions. What are the real numbers that we're seeing in all these disasters, and where are these people really going, and what's really happening to them? We must band together. We must get stronger together, and it's happening. You guys are a prime example of it, and I see it in this community. And it's beautiful and strong, and it's growing stronger every day. And we must continue upon that path. So be very aware of the ways that we are being subliminally controlled. And the subliminal will become more and more just out in the open as we go, and we can see that. So we must wake up, we must band together, we must grow stronger together and pull each other up. And thank you guys for the support that I've seen pouring out for Pam, the farmer in Missouri that was almost crushed by 2 bales of hay after somebody stole basically all her money from her bank account. And you know what? She loves her animals. She has such a heart of gold, and she's a wonderful, compassionate person. And thank all you guys that are showing your love and support. And it's been a wonderful outpouring. And anybody else that's still interested, please do contact me, and I'll get you in touch with her. And there are other people as well, and I apologize if I forget anyone. Feel free always to reach out and let me know. There's so many emails every day, it's gotten almost impossible for me to keep up with them, but keep them coming in, and I'll always try to respond as best as I can. And I really appreciate you guys. I appreciate what you're doing, banding together. You're beautiful. You're so full of love and light and harmony and peace and true brotherhood. You are showing and living what Christ wanted to impart to us. And that is that true life of compassion, love, and caring for each other. Take care of each other. And it's the same thing with Buddha, as well as so many others that have come to be teachers for us, guides for us. They didn't come to take our power away. They came to expose us to our true power. There's a big difference in that. They came to show us the potential that we have within us and not take our power away. They wanted to empower us and not take it away. So realize that. The dark forces want you to give it away, not the forces of light and love and peace and harmony. So my friends, as always, thumbs up to support the channel. Please do subscribe and join our family. Click the bell so you get all the updates, and share with as many people as possible so we can wake them up. May you guys always be blessed with abundant peace, health, well-being, happiness, and always be kept safe. God bless, my friends, and namaste.